Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us here today. I'm so excited to have such a great turnout. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rowan. I'm one of the cardiology fellows at Hopkins, and I am the housing chief. And it is my honor to introduce our guest speaker today, Dr. Topf. Dr. Topf is a nephrologist who is currently based in Michigan. He earned his medical degree in Wayne State University, after which he did a combined internal medicine and pediatric residency at Indiana University School of Medicine. And after a year of doing pediatric critical care, decided to pursue nephrology fellowship at the University of Chicago. He currently serves as the medical director at St. Clair Nephrology Research. He has authored 2 medical textbooks, the Microbiology Companion and the Fluid Electrolyte and Acid-Base Companion. He also blogs on the Precious Bodily Fluids website. I love the names of everything so far. He is the co-creator of Neph Magnus, which is a phenomenal online platform used to teach the latest in nephrology by utilizing new modalities in education, including social media, gamification, and interactivity. He's also a co-creator of one of the top journal clubs on Twitter, NephJC, which truly had a huge impact on our very own Cards JC. Dr. Topf, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. We've all seen your phenomenal journal clubs on Twitter. And honestly, we're really hoping that you impart some of your wisdom onto us today and maybe teach us from your experience the keys to running a successful journal club. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Great introduction. I love the part currently from Michigan. I'm always in Michigan. I'm never leaving Michigan. I am a Michigander through and through. Okay. Since we're on Zoom, I have to ask, can you see my slides? The standard, we're on Zoom. Yeah, right after, can you hear me? Can you hear my slides? Okay. So what I've done is I give a talk on social media, and I've kind of honed it down to focus on NephJC, but I wanted to give sort of a bigger picture of why I think NephJC is important and what role it plays. So, free open access medical education, I view it as a radical democratization of medical education. And the way I look at this is kind of a 2-axis grid with number of producers on the y-axis and number of consumers on the x-axis, and you kind of just draw a line from the origin up to the top right. And in the bottom corner here, we have traditional medical education, and I represent that by a textbook. And as you kind of move up the scale, and then kind of an example of why there's few producers and consumers is like, this is the most recent edition of the standard pediatric textbook. And this is a textbook. It costs $1,200. And that kind of blew my mind when I saw that price. It's just absurd to me. Because you kind of move to up the number of consumers and radically increase the number of increase the number of producers and number of consumers. You kind of look at traditional blogs. I also include Wikipedia there, and the change in the price, lowering the price to free, is just incredibly powerful. So this is one of the textbooks I wrote. It's called the Fluid and Electrolyte and Acid-Base Companion, 591 pages. We published it in 1999. We printed up 1,200 copies, and it took us 3 years to sell each one for about $40 a piece. And this was, when we sold that last one, it had no more inventory. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I was so delighted. We never had a second printing. But about 8 years ago, I posted it to my blog as a free PDF. Anybody can download that. And since then, we've been having 590 downloads every month for 8 years. Like, changing the price from $40 to free just radically increased the demand for this textbook. Just absolutely phenomenal. And it just emphasized to me, there is such a dramatic difference between something that I think, $40 for a textbook, not too expensive, but free is just a whole different game. And so that kind of puts that in the middle. And then in the ultimate manifestation of FOMAD, with the greatest number of consumers and producers, is just going to be traditional social media. And you can put a second axis on this graph. You could have degree of difficulty. And clearly, as you move along here, the degree of difficulty goes way down. I've had the honor to be the editor of a couple of kind of modern textbooks, and boy, these things, multi-author textbooks are incredibly hard and difficult to shepherd from concept to a book that you can hold into your hand. And on the other hand, you just have the Twitter box says, "What's happening?" Tap away and hit tweet, and you have been published, right? And I remember when I first started talking about social media, I would spend a lot of time, talking about how does one tweet, and I was just realized, what am I doing? Like, Twitter and Facebook literally have thousands of engineers that are dedicated to making this easy to do. Now, clearly, we've been going through some downsizing. There's probably a lot less than 30,000 engineers, but you get the idea that these things are designed to be addictive in their very essence. And so, who are you talking to when you do these? When you tweet out on social media? So there's this full network of people that are there. This thing really became much more lively when we added phones to the mix. This turned it away from doing something that you would only approach when you were at your computer, at your desk, to something that you carried with you and could do all the time. And inside this large collection, there are a few people that are interested in kidneys, and those are the people that I'm interested in. And that we call our personal learning network or community of practice. And this to me is kind of the goal of having a real social media presence, is having a group of people that you trust, that provide you reliable information, that are interested in all different aspects of your chosen specialty, that comment on manuscripts when they see them, comment on patients or new conditions that they're learning about, and keep you up to date, and are a sounding board when you have new ideas, when you're trying to kind of crowdsource a list for something that you're doing for a lecture. Having a engaged audience and that you participate in is really, really powerful. And a FOMED community of practice has been defined. This is by Teresa Chan, who's probably one of the foremost scholars on medical social media. She says a community of practice is a highly networked learning environment that interweaves learners, teachers, scientists, and practitioners in a swirling web of content production and consumption. And I love this definition because I had appreciated the value of a highly networked learning environment before I saw this definition. And when I saw this definition, I was like, oh, yeah, you're putting words to what I value so much in my Twitter community. And I put the FOMED community practice up against kind of traditional medical education. Because I think I think it is a relevant comparison. Like, these are the two kind of, in my mind, the foundational or fundamental ways that we can do modern teaching, and they're clearly widely different, right? Traditional medical education is eminence based. You are invited to teach. It is quite an honor when you finally get an invitation to teach in front of a medical school, and that's always just eminence based. You have built up a career and a reputation over years or decades, and somebody rewards you with the opportunity to teach. Well, people that participate in a FOMED community of practice are there because of just enthusiasm. They've decided this is something that they like, they're excited about it, and they write about it. It's all enthusiasm based. Eminence based can be 9 to 5 job, right? This is the job that you're done. The enthusiasm based community of practice is going to be the 5 to 9, the thing that you do after hours. One is invited, the other one is self-appointed. And clearly, the traditional medical education is very based on a concept of permission, or a culture of permission. Someone gives you permission to do this. Or our FOMED community of practice, there's no permission slip. You do whatever you want, however you want to do it. And this results in pretty significant differences. So this is the racial breakdown from the American Association of Medical College faculty roster. The 64% of people, teachers, are white, 19% are Asian. You would think that 5% would be Black. No, that's a no, right? You have to go all the way down to the yellow one to get there. And we see this in all different places. So up to date, the nephrology section had 35 named editors. Not a single one was a woman up until recently. You have to kind of look at the list to finally see how just stunning that is, to see a list of 35 consecutive editors and not a single woman on that entire list. This has subsequently been changed after this was brought to light by the women in nephrology, just publicly shamed up to date. They've made some changes. There's 2 women editors now, and hopefully that's going to be more of them. And I just think that gives light to the fact that this FOMED community of practice is going to have much more diverse practices. There's going to be much more diverse voices. You're going to have more people from private practice, younger people, more women, more people of color, more international people that are going to be part of that thing. And I think that's an important thing that's been missing from medical education, which has been highly conservative in the past. And, it's funny. This seems like a stark decision, and it is like a decision when you are a resident. But everybody is going to finish the academy. And like, if you're a cardiology fellow, you're going to finish your fellowship and maybe you'll spend an extra 2 years doing heart failure or interventional, but eventually you leave the academy. And then, that traditional medical education really falls away. Now you can still, if this is really the way you like to learn, you can seek it out, right? You can go to conferences, which imitate that traditional medical education. You can do Zoom lectures. You are certainly going to have lots of tests that you're going to need to take to maintain certification. But all of those are going to now cost money, right? And this becomes a deliberate choice. And this FOAMed community of practice, the first one in FOAMed is it's free. And so that's good. I think that's a stark difference here also. And going forward, you're going to have a requirement to do maintenance of certification. It's just not enough. And, everybody leaves fellowship with a pretty much a similar education level. You've had a certain level of education that you needed to achieve that, and it's kind of homogenous. But the moment you leave the academy, their standard deviation starts to widen. And it's pretty clear 20 years out, I can look and I can see people that have kept up, that have maintained their skills, and people that have not done so. And by building and developing this personal learning network, it's something that I think it's a great way to continue that. So how does one build a nephrology community of practice? I think that's the core question. And really what I'm going to teach you is not just about nephrology. It can be about your critical care practice. It can be about your cardiology practice. It can really be about a hospitalist practice. It doesn't matter. This blank can be filled in by anything. My experiences with nephrology, and so that's what I was going to talk about. And I just want to go back to that definition that I introduced before. A highly networked learning environment that interweaves learners, teachers, scientists, and practitioners in a swirling web of content production and consumption. And I kind of love that right in the definition, everybody that is part of that group is supposed to be both a consumer and a producer. And that kind of reminds me of the smartphone itself. Right? You think about Instagram, it's the exact same device you use to capture the photos as you use to view the photos. The same device does both consumption and production. And, honestly, the core advice in building a personal learning network or these networked, highly networked environments is just start producing medical education and you will find your people and build this effective community of practice. Right. So you have an interesting case, abstract it from anything identifiable and tell the world. Use Twitter to teach us. I don't know, use TikTok to teach us. Use YouTube to teach us. Use podcasts to teach us. Right. It doesn't matter what you use. If you start generating the medical content, you are going to be identified as one of these producers. People are going to network with you and you'll be able to build this network. And so one of the things about these personal learning networks is there's all these individual nodes. And some of them are like Neph Madness, which is this competition she mentioned. Some of them are a website like Nephropocus, which talks about um, uh, 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 using ultrasound point of care. NephJC will be talking about CJC does visual abstracts with a community that generates those. And then we have a community that generates our podcasts. And each one of these nodes is actually these little communities of practice also right side there. It's just community of practice all the way down. And so to talk about NephJC a little bit more. And so I kind of went back through back to 2014 when this began. And this was just a conversation we were having about one of our journals was trying to generate an online community to discuss articles. And it was kind of a failure. We were kind of talking about why it may be. And Swapnil Hiremath suggested that we just do a Twitter journal club. And I sent him a direct message that night saying, "Hey, are you really serious about this? Because I think this is something that could really work." And he said, "Yeah, I'm pretty interested in this." And then we start. So Journal Club is just a group of doctors that meet regularly to discuss papers of interest in current medical journals. It was actually invented by William Osler before he went to Johns Hopkins, right? He was at McGill University in 1865. Story is he was too cheap to subscribe to a lot of the journals he wanted, so he suckered other people to subscribe to the journals, and then they would share them and discuss the articles. That was the original Journal Club. The Journal Club makes its first appearance in the medical literature in 1966. This was a review article in Postgrad Medicine Journal in which they talked about it. They described it as a regular and often compulsory feature of hospital life. Some things have never changed. In 1986, first comprehensive review of journal clubs came out, said that 85% of internal medicine residency programs have a journal club. And then the first appearance on Twitter was TwitJC in 2011 that started doing journal clubs. They actually got a lot right. A lot of what we did in NFJC imitated what we saw in TwitJC, which was 2011. And our journal club starts in 2014. And we have been doing 2 journal clubs a month since April of 2014. May of 2014 is when we began. So our 10-year anniversary will be next year. Looking forward to that. How it works is we see an interesting article. This was a landmark article that came out last year. We do voting at the end of the year. This is manuscript of the year. It's why I chose it. And so if you remember minimal Chase disease causing nephrotic syndrome in kids, it was listed as a non-antibody mediated disease. And actually, we now think it's antibody mediated. So we have a work group of about 50 people. That's just a DM group on Twitter. We're constantly scouring the literature for interesting articles. Some of them, they see that one that raises the point, and we decide on we'll do one. So this is our there. Hold on, let me try to get that animation back. Is that again? There we go. So what we do is we do a summary of the article. We try to limit this to be about 1,200 to 2,000 words. This was a basic science article. We don't typically do them. We do them a couple of times a year. They tend to be way longer because basic science articles now have many, many different experiments incorporated in them, and it results in a long, long methods section. But this was the summary that we did for this one. This was, like I said, a little bit longer. We do visual abstracts for every one of our NFJCs that we do. We have a team that builds these up. And then we send out a newsletter announcing that. We have a weekly newsletter, and we'll announce what our next NFJC is going to be for that. And then the NFJC happens. We run our NFJC. The host runs it from the NFJC Twitter account, which has something, I think, close to 30,000 followers currently. And so that the person who actually hosts it rotate, but they always use the same account. And it starts off like any journal club. We announce who, have everybody say hi. We had 2 of the authors, the lead author and senior author, join us for this chat, which was great. And then we just walk through the methods. We focus on the thing that I think is super important in an FJC is it is not a lecture. You are not creating a tutorial, that you are trying to engage people. What I try to tell people is that it should be one statement followed by one question. You should always be inviting commentary. You're trying to get people to engage. You're not trying to get people to sit back and listen. We definitely encourage the use of GIFs to be entertaining and keep the mood light. We use a lot of images. And I love this exchange right here. So Jane Witt Wang Bunsen is a fellow, or was a fellow at this time. And he asked a question about minimal change disease and its relationship to FSGS. He gets replied to by Andy Watts, who's the lead author, and a second comment by Lawrence Beck, who's probably one of the most prominent scientists in this field. And so what you had is you have a trainee talking to an author being commented on by a scientist who's an expert in the field. And this is what we were talking about, that swirling mixture of learners and scientists and researchers all joining in with a single conversation. It really is amazing. And this is the kind of thing that you cannot reproduce at your local journal club at home. This is something that only emerges in something like an FJC. For this discussion, we had 107 participants and 511 comments in the 1 hour tweet. We really feel that these NFJC tweet chats are live events. I have tried to go back to the transcript afterwards and read them, and I cannot follow them in a way that I find it totally natural to follow them as they come out live. And since it's a live experience and can't really reproduce them on transcript, we reproduce it twice. We do it once for not North America, but for America or Western Hemisphere, which is at 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. And then we follow it with another event the following day, 9 p.m. India Standard Time on Wednesday, the following day. And so with 2 live events, one for the West and one for Asia. We also used to do a European one, but that one kind of lost enthusiasm. Then a week later, a week after the NFJC, we do a summary, right? And so we call this our 10 tweet NFJC, and it is a structured tweetorial, right? Everybody's familiar with tweetorials. I'm not sure if anybody, I think this is an innovation from Jamie White, one of our own members. He came up with this idea of a structured tweetorial. So you can see the structure of the 10 tweet NFJC. There's 10 tweets there, 1 through 10, and you're looking at tweet number 1. All right, so only 9 more to go. Here's tweet number 2. What did I miss? Tweet number 3. Give me a methods in 1 tweet, right? Tweet number 4. Give me the results. 1 tweet. Here are your results. This is actually a study you guys should be super interested in. This is the Advor trial on acetazolamide and heart failure. So you guys are super familiar with this. Here's a link to the NEJM one. Okay, so the results, they had significantly better congestion relief in the arms. Tweet number 5 is a figure, paints 100 words. We get the key figure from the article. Tweet number 6, give me something clever to say, which I love. Like, what can I say to sound smart on Rouse tomorrow about Advor there? The addition of acetazolamide to IV loop diuretics led to more diuresis, natriuresis, shorter hospital length of stay, and higher likelihood of being discharged without signs of congestion. Perfect. Tweet 7 is give me the chat consensus, which is nice. Tweet 8 is the quote of the fortnight, when we always try to get people try to be super clever during the tweet chat. I won this one. That's why I definitely have it here. But he did it as a quote shaped tweet. It doesn't come through here, so I don't know what clever thing I said. I don't remember. I should find that. Tweet number 9 is I want more info. This is going to be links to either, I think in this case, 2 of the authors, plus our summary, plus a tweetorial about the topic. Oh, and the VA is also, the visual abstract is also there. And 10 are the final thoughts and a mention of what's next. 10. So this is something that you can get through in 5 minutes. So what you can see is we're starting to build a cohort of products, omni-channel. We had the summary, which is 15 to 20 minutes to read. You have the article itself, which is however long it takes you to read an article. I'm not very slow. We have the chat itself, which is an hour-long event. We have the 10 tweet FJC, which is 5 minutes. And then we do a podcast on the same topic. So this is our freely filtered podcast. We do this. We try to do it twice a month. We're not so great at that. We've been running into problems recently. That's what I have at 10 o'clock. We'll be doing a tweet chat, an FJC tonight, an FJC podcast tonight. This is the crew that does them. And I have this shovel here to remind me that our podcast is a deep dive. We are not cursory. And I put this in contrast. Right. So they're 60 to 90 minutes long. They are an expansive discussion. We usually will bring the authors onto the podcast or other content experts. And then the last thing we do is we will then publish a summary of our experience in a journal. Okay. And so we've done this about 9 times now. And we call this Teresa Chan, who I've already mentioned as being kind of the expert on social media medicine, calls this reverse publication. So standard publication is you publish a manuscript and then somebody covers it in social media. Here we have an event that happens in social media. We publish it into a journal. So it's reversing this typical order. And this is important, right? Because everybody that works on FJC does it voluntarily. Nobody gets paid a dime for this. And this is the coin of the realm, is getting a PubMed citation that you can put on your CV. This is what we're offering. This is a way of kind of paying people back for doing FJC, is getting them a publication. So the summary, here's our model. We do the summary, we do the visual abstract, we do the newsletter, we do the chat in America, chat in India, and the 10 tweet tutorial. That's done twice a month. We've been doing, we don't have, a lot of these are innovations that came up recently, but twice a month. And then we have the kidney medicine and the freely filtered that we try to do monthly. And so you kind of get this picture of what we're looking at. This is our model. Well, we've done some other stuff. We put together a code of ethics and professional conduct that we use to guide ourselves. Here it's it's 11 items, and we had kind of a visual abstract to make it easy to understand. These have been things that we kind of vetted amongst ourselves. Has been pretty impressive. And then kind of how we've done. So just like cardiology, there's a nephrology fellow in-service exam, and it's tagged onto the end of that in-service exam is a survey. And different research teams compete to get their questions in front of the fellows. They don't let every research team get in front of the fellows because they don't want to be exhaustive. But in 2021, people asked about what educational resources they used and how effective they were. And the interesting thing about that is the exact same question had been asked in 2016. So you could get a sense of a movement from fellows over 5 years. So King up to date was used the most, 96% of fellows in 2016 and down to 82% of fellows in 2021. So it's very high. Nothing is touches up to date, but it is going in the wrong direction. And then you can kind of see some of these are the other things that have fallen. So CJASN is a traditional journal. NEFSAP is a publication from the American Society of Nephrology, which is kind of a review on different topics. They're very, very good. JASN is another journal article, another journal, textbooks. American Journal of Kidney Disease is another journal, and journals in general. All of them are falling. These are things that fellows are moving away from. KDIGO is our clinical guidelines. Those are going up. Renal Fellow Network is a blog site. KSAP is a question bank, really dramatic improvement from 26% to 57%. It was very new in 2016. It's now kind of established. And there's an FJC going from 7% to 32%. We're really proud of how much we've exploded in growth. And then these are things that weren't even on the radar in 2016, not even listed in 2016. Nephrology podcast at 22% of the one that I point to. We'll just kind of resort the list and you can kind of get a sense of where we are. So an FJC kind of at the bottom of that first column, but going in the right direction. A lot of the stuff ahead of us is going down, not going. They also asked what the green bar is, the percent of people that found it very effective. We are delighted with our position at a very high rate of effectiveness. We're pretty happy with that positioning. And then the other thing I want to emphasize, we're trying to build this community of nephrology practice. And what happens during the FJC is you bring in people of like minds. These are people that are interested in nerding out about nephrology manuscripts online. And I emphasize when you are at these chats, you need to find someone to follow. Find someone there because these are your people. And this is one of the purposes of the journal club is to bring people in and get people to follow each other. So you have this personal learning network when it's not JC time. And I always try to highlight people that I found and tell people that and talk about how excited I am to follow them to demonstrate, as best I can to get this to be promoted. And that's how you build your nephrology community of practice. Here's our FJC FOMED community of practice. Here are the people that worked on all this. There's myself and Swapnil Hiremath, my co-founder, and all the other people that have participated. It's a great group of people. I love working with this group. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is this is kind of our chat participation from 2014 to 2023. And you look at it, we've had some spikes during I believe that was the COVID spike that we had right there. Here's the 8-week moving average. And can you see it? You see it? Yeah, I see it. And this is something that concerns me, is that the number of people that are participating in chat is definitely going down. Okay. And we're not perseverating on it, but I am definitely thinking about this. What's going on? The Twitter chat, it seems to be falling out of favor. And part of my thought is is this just a Peloton thing? Did we explode during the pandemic when there was no other option that everybody ran to the Twitter because there was nothing else, and that now we're going back to normal? Is this just a temporary pandemic induced change in learning habits? And I don't think so, because though the chat participation is dropping off, our web traffic is not. So the website nfjc.com is still going up. There was certainly a spike in 2020 during the pandemic, and we dropped back down, but we didn't drop back down to 2019. We definitely kind of continued on that same pattern of growth that we had before, and we've continued to grow in 2022. Our podcast is going gangbusters. We're delighted with the effect of our podcast. We're no cardio nerds, and we recognize that we're not cardio nerds, but we've had nice growth with that, and we're real pleased with how we're doing with that. And you're kind of wondering, what happened to the Twitter chat? And the kind of the obvious thing, of course, is Elon's taking over of Twitter. But I personally don't think this is it. This is what's happening. I think we saw this signal of the decreased popularity of Twitter chats emerged before Elon took over. But I do think that there have been some events in the last few years: the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, the 2020 election, and January 6th. And a lot of these things really played out on Twitter. And I think they have changed the nature of Twitter, or at least changed people's view of Twitter. It made Twitter sound like a very combative place, not a warm and welcoming place, not a place where you want to stake out your opinions in a visible way. And again, I'm not saying this is I just think this is a shift in attitude, a change in the way people perceive this social media network. And I wonder if this is kind of decreasing Twitter's engagement. We're seeing this. I don't think that we're alone in seeing this. And it's something that I don't perseverate on, but it's something that I think about. And it may be that NetJC, and I do think to a large extent, NetJC, though, when we first began, was all about the Twitter chats. And I think now it's more about some of the other stuff we do. The visual abstracts that we do show up in national meetings all the time. And I think those people that are presenting never went to an FJC Twitter chat, but they are using the resources that we're producing, which is great, right? And I think people are listening to our podcast, which is great. And so I think FJC is just more representing post-publication peer review and less a Twitter chat. That's just and I want to emphasize, if you look at that, those numbers, it's not like we've fallen off a cliff. We're doing okay. We're still having pretty good Twitter chats, and there's pretty good engagement here. And I've been pleased with that. But I just thought that's what I had to say.